大家好，我叫丛云. That's my Chinese name, 丛云. And I chose that when I was living in Chengdu. And I got to tell you guys, I am such a big fan of these daily live streams. It's been really fun. Lots of people have been showing up. Lots of people have been enjoying the process of learning character by character, learning in such a way where we can get the possibility of actual fluency by building comprehensible input from the bottom up. Chinese is a big language. We all know this. We all understand this. And so you have to take a methodical approach. Otherwise, you're going to end up getting lost and confused at some point. So this is a very natural thing to happen. And I would just like to give you guys an insight into if you can get over that initial feeling of discomfort regarding the character learning process. And if you can manage to get to a good character learning system, you'll discover that Chinese words are incredibly logical. And today I'm going to give you a presentation explaining how all that works using the Chinese character ji, which primarily means machine or engine, but it has some other meanings, which I'll talk about as we go forward. And you know, I'm realizing as I'm looking at this that my video is delayed. So let me see if I can do a quick change that will make this a little bit better. Okay, let me do this. Let me put this version of the video here. Haha, that's better. All right, folks. So, couple of quick announcements. First of all, if you don't know me, hi, I'm Phil Crimmins. I'm co-founder here at Mandarin Blueprint, and we built Mandarin Blueprint as an attempt to help fix the broken Mandarin education system once and for all. So, you know, our courses are helping people, thousands of members now, I think over 10,000 members now, reach university level Chinese in a fraction of the time. And that's what we do here at Mandarin Blueprint. We break down Chinese in such a way so that you can understand it from the very basics all the way to fluency. So let's get into a little bit of how to use this character ji. Now, this character can create a lot of words. And one of the words that you can start off with is a very simple one, ji qi. Now, ji qi is essentially the meaning of engine utensil. So what would be an engine utensil? Like, qi has the feeling of utensil or instrument in some way. So what's an engine utensil? Well, that's just the general word for machine. If you want to refer to anything as a machine in a general sense, you can call it a ji qi. And by the way, that makes you wonder, well, wait, doesn't ji mean machine to begin with? And the answer is that you have to understand that Chinese characters are morphemes first and sometimes words, but not always. So what's a morpheme? A morpheme is just a mini meaning. That's how I like to think of it. It is an element of the language that has meaning, but doesn't necessarily create a word. For example, if I say the word unexpected, the un and the ed, the ed at the end, they both have meaning, but they can't be used alone. But expect in the middle, that could be used alone. So there are three morphemes, but only one of the three morphemes is a word on its own. Chinese characters are kind of like that. Some of them are words on their own. Some of them need to be combined with other characters, but that doesn't mean they're not meaningful. So you don't just say ji to refer to a machine. If you want to refer to the general word for machine, you say ji qi. Okay? Now, let's take a look at another word here. Here, we already know that ji qi is a machine. What happens if you add ren, person? So a machine person. What could this be? Well, and by the way, feel free to share in the chat at any point if you guys have any thoughts about this, but this is, of course, a robot. So a machine person, a 机器人, would be a robot. And so that should give you an example of how you can build off what you already know. We learned ren as a part of the Henzi movie method in one of last week's live streams. And so now we learn a word 机器, and we add ren afterwards, and we get a robot. So as I mentioned, Chinese is pretty straightforward. Now, there we have the machine and machine person robot. Let's take a look at this next one. Okay, so here we have 手机. 手机. Well, 手, one of the more ancient characters, this just means hand. So hand. So your hand machine. Your hand machine. Well, what would that be? Well, it's kind of interesting. You could think of a lot of things here, but actually what this usually refers to is a cell phone or a mobile phone, right? So when people are talking about their 手机, they tend to be talking about their smartphone. I mean, you could say 智能手机 to mean smartphone, but in the same way that we just say my phone these days, they will also just say 手机 instead of saying smartphone. And so that's an example of how Chinese kind of took the very basics of the idea. They're like, well, it's a machine you hold in your hand. There could be multiple machines you hold in your hand, but why not choose the one that everybody uses the most to be the one we're going to apply hand machine to? 手机, 手机. So there you go. There's a really useful one. How about this one? 收音机, 收音机. Well, here we have receive, 收, sound, in, machine. The receive sound machine. What is a receive sound machine? Well, if I told you that it meant radio, would that kind of make sense? And so I keep stopping at moments because I want to marvel for a second at how interesting it is that when you learn a language like Chinese, you discover that so many of the basic like sort of structures of words are obvious on their face, or if you didn't see it as obvious at first, maybe there's a way of thinking about it that makes you understand what it is. So for example, if you're a kid and you learn the idea of a radio, it's not like you hear radio and you think, oh, I learned about the prefix raid and how if you have EO at the end, it means, I don't even know, right? Like it's just a radio's a radio. But if you had been learning Chinese characters, you see, okay, receive sound machine. Well, yeah, sure. That's what it does. It's receiving the, radio waves. And, sometimes it's somewhat of a crude mechanism of explaining it. It's not like all there is to say about a cell phone is that it's the hand machine, but it gets the point across and you get a sense of the nature of the object right on its face. So Chinese is very cool that way. And by the way, when I was learning Chinese, I felt like, why didn't anybody ever tell me this? I saw Chinese all throughout my childhood. Nobody was ever telling me like how cool and logical Chinese words were. I don't, maybe it's just because it wasn't a thing that was taught in my school, but it's really interesting to me that it was never mentioned throughout all of my childhood education, how interesting Chinese is in this way. Okay, now let's take a look at this one. 耳机, 耳机. Well, here we have ear. So the ear machine? The ear machine. What machines do I put in my ears? Well, your earphones, right? So that's another good example of very obvious. And again, even if you didn't get it right away, as soon as you find out what the translation is, it's pretty quick to understand. And then if you apply just a little bit of extra mnemonic effort on top of it, if you want to be like making it even more memorable, well, then that's excellent as well. We call that living links. But part of why I'm showing you this character is to show you that so many words are really obvious right on their face. Okay, how about this one? 照相机. 照相机. Well, this is the illuminate. That's what 照 means. If you 照 something, you're illuminating it in some way. That's what's going on there. And then 相 is an image of some kind. So illuminate image machine. Any guesses? Any thoughts about the history of photography? Well, it's a camera. So, you think about when a camera might first have been invented. They're like, what is it doing? It's illuminating an image, right? And then it creates an image. So that's pretty cool. Then how about this one? Da yin ji. Well, this first character, da, has so many different usages. One of them is simply to make, right? One of them is just make something. You know, probably the first definition of da is to hit, right? But you'll learn this as you continue to get better at Chinese. But da means a bunch of things. Okay, so make. Yin. This is like an imprint or an impression. So make imprint machine. Make imprint machine. Well, what a surprise, that's a printer. So you can get the sense that so many Chinese words are very clear right off the bat. 取款机. So this one, we have the take or withdraw funds machine. Take funds machine. Any guesses? This is an ATM. And by the way, I didn't write ATM machine because the M in ATM stands for machine. Automatic teller machine. So a lot of times people say ATM machine. And I'm like, huh, automatic teller machine? I'm better than you because I said that. I say in jest, of course. 洗衣机, 洗, clean, 衣, clothes, 机, machine. Boy, is Chinese easy, right? This is just a washing machine. So you can see that many of these things are so obvious on their face. And yesterday we had somebody asking about the Henzi movie method. And by the way, I will take some questions after this first slide. But somebody was asking about the Henzi movie method. And they were saying, hey, how does this apply to bigger words, right? So like, sure, we're learning a character here, but what if I want to learn 公共汽车, which is the word for public bus? And I pointed out that you learn individual characters using a special mnemonic method like the Henzi movie method, but you don't need to learn such a complicated mnemonic system for Chinese words for two reasons. And one of them is because a lot of the times, if you learn the character, it's really obvious what it means. You know, clean clothes machine. You know, I mean, I know some people aren't super high intelligence, but you'd have to be like below language to not get what that is, right? It's like, it's very, very basic stuff. So, and then the other reason why you don't have to work as hard on learning words is that words are only one level up from seeing them in sentences. So you can use context of sentences to learn new words very well as well. Whereas it's a little bit harder to do from characters because you have to go from characters to words to sentence. And so if you didn't stop at the word and learn the word, then you go right from character to sentence. It's hard to learn the character that way. This is part of the reason why traditional learning methods don't work very well. Okay, let's look at another word here. 录音机. So we already talked about in before, up with radio. So that was receive sound machine. This one is record sound machine. So it's an audio recorder, right? It's not like this is, at this point, it's like, would you guys want to have a guess? It's obvious what it is. It's like the record sound machine. Yep, totally. How about this one? I like this. 电视机. 电视机. So this is the electric viewing machine. So electric viewing machine. What do you think this is? Well, it's just your TV. And it's specifically your television set. If we say 电视, that refers to TV in the sense that, like, in a general sense, like you could be talking about what's on TV, and you're not saying like literally my TV set. So if you say 电视机, you're referring to the actual machine, the actual TV. I like this one. 游戏机. So 游戏. Technically, this is move about drama. Move about drama, which is kind of an interesting way. So it's the move about drama machine. Well, what do you think this is? Well, actually, it's a game console. And I like how Chinese thinks of that. So first of all, 游戏 is just the general word for game. So it's almost like the Chinese are saying, that a game is when you are interacting with drama, right? So you're moving about the drama. You're marching through the drama. And so I like to think about that with video games because you think, okay, 有戏机, that means that you can imagine that if you're watching a movie, you're just watching the drama. But if you're playing the video game, you're like in the drama. So it's kind of cool how they've framed that there. Okay, how about this one? 充气机. 充 means to replenish. 气, air. 机, machine. So, of course, this is an inflator. So, a machine that inflates your tires. And I specifically put that one in last to give you guys a sense of the fact that, like, the amount of G that there are out there is way more than I could fit into one presentation, but you'll be able to easily understand all these different machines. They just describe what it is right before it. And so it makes the process of acquiring new vocabulary as you get better at Mandarin much, much easier. So let me just take a moment. And by the way, like, I'll keep this on screen for just a sec so you guys can, if you guys want to screenshot this or something and just get a sense of the different words you could use here. But as I move on, here's what I'll do next. So I'm going to cover up my live video from the keynote because it's not turning out right there. It's just not looking right. It's too laggy. And I wanted to make sure you guys can see Rick. And so here's what I'll do here. I will bring in the chat. All right. Oh, moving around my background here. There we go. I'll make this a bit smaller. All right, so let's see what's going on in the chat, folks. So first of all, welcome everyone. Just a reminder, we'll be doing this every day at 1 p.m. Now, I did start this process of doing live streams the week before I'm going on holiday, or vacation, as we call it here in America. All my British friends call it holiday, and I feel like I like that. I mean, I get that we call holidays. Oh, see, I extended the chat over here, and then it extended the chat down here as well. So I got to make it smaller. But I'm going on vacation next week because my mother-in-law is... Oh, sorry. My mother-in-law is coming to see me, and my wife, and she's from Serbia, so I'm going to show her the U.S. She technically has been to New York before in her life, but she's never been to other parts. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And so as a result, I won't be live streaming as much. However, Luke is going to cover for me, but it won't be at the same time. That said, though, this week, every day at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern, I'll be doing this live stream. And then when I come back... which will actually, I'm not on vacation the whole time, but I have a business trip right after it. So it's like about 2.5 week period. The beginning of July is going to be a little bit touch and go with the live streams. But after that, it will be very consistent every day at 1 p.m. and we'll be testing out different stuff. But for now, the plan is Mondays are Henza movie method demonstrations. So this is the demonstration of the mnemonic technique. Tuesdays are learning word by word with characters like we're doing today. Learning words character by character. That's the way you think of it. You should learn words character by character. And then the Wednesday live stream is specifically for members. And everybody can join. But if you're a member of the Mandarin Blueprint Method or the Blueprint course or just any of our courses, really, I'm going to be doing a live stream that is an onboarding. So it's a chance to ask questions, and it's also a chance to know what's coming up in each course. So basically, if you're in any of our courses, whether that's the Blueprint, phases 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the intermediate course, the upper intermediate course, the advanced course, if you're in Mandarin Immersion Masterclass or you're not sure how to use Mandarin Immersion Masterclass, if you want to get started with Habit Building Bootcamp, if you want to get started with Mandarin Speaking and Listening Kickstarter, which is a great little new course of ours. It's not even that little. It's actually quite big. It takes about 30 days to finish. And then you've got the pronunciation mastery course. Maybe you want to get started on that. So the point is, regardless of what course you may be in, If you join the Wednesday live stream, you can either know how to get started. If you're stuck, you can get unstuck. And so Wednesday's for members. And then Thursday is when we'll be doing beginner Chinese phrases. So we'll go to the phrase level. So Monday's characters, Tuesday's words, Thursday's phrases, and then Fridays is situational Chinese. So we'll see how all of those perform, which one you guys like the best, and then we'll do more of those, and then we'll introduce a new concept and replace the one that you guys like the least. So, okay, I'm going to go through some of these chats here. I'm glad to see that so many people are excited to be here. That's nice it's very validating for me. Second time, awesome. Got some folks from Africa, Italy, Sweden, Egypt, the Bronx. Nice. Glad to see that there's so many people from all over. Nogue Violin, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, modern, I really liked it because over here we have some Chinese people and I heard them speak Chinese, and so, you got interested because there are Chinese people around, and I think that you said that you're from Africa. Doesn't surprise me that you've met some Chinese people in Africa. They're doing a lot of infrastructure projects over there, and so, learning Chinese if you're in Africa is actually really a useful tool. Friend is Chinese, started to learn from her. Awesome. I was in China for the first time a few months ago and was amazed at how friendly people are there. Absolutely. We're actually going to be releasing a video later this week, maybe early next week, although I think it's ready to go, so it should be later this week. And it's a video I made. It's an hour and 10 minutes long, just explaining if you are going to China for the first time or you're thinking about going to China, here's all my 11 years of living there condensed into one. Like all the knowledge and wisdom I picked up about how living in China and traveling in China condensed into one spot. So, that's, look out for that, guys. Yeah, if you guys ever get the chance to go to China, it's awesome. It's very interesting. It's very interesting to go there because it's not like anywhere else, And it's not all, roses and rainbows. There's things that are problematic, but there's a lot of cool stuff too. And, well, that's true of everywhere, isn't it? Yeah. Glad to see that there's so many people planning to go to China. Tony, here at 2 a.m., 1 a.m. from Jakarta in some cases. 7 in Nigeria. Yep. Cool. Oh, got people guessing here. That's good. You say for speaker, so like not every, you said, how do we say speaker? That's a 音响, 音响. And that literally means the sound, I'll just write it in here. It's the sound, like 响 is like to sound out. Like it's got the mouth component and it means like your alarm will 响 in the morning to wake you up. And so the 音响 is the sound like shouter, I guess, is like the speaker. And so it's not a G in that sense because it's more the conductor of the sound. Somebody asked about that. Nice. All right. Okay, so ni hao, y'all. Got people from Portugal, got people from Brazil, Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, right? I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong because I don't speak French. Stephanie bringing up. Phil, please thank John, Janelle, and Eleanor for answering all the email questions. I thank them all the time. They rule. Eleanor recently moved on to another opportunity, but John and Janelle are still here, and we brought on a new member service representative named Leah P., also from Portugal. Somebody's here from Portugal, Leah Pereira, and so she's going to be helping out. And we probably are going to have some more people joining soon to help the operations team and help the Mandarin Blueprint experience get even better. So very excited. Stephanie brought up, 2 p.m. is when kids get out of school. I mean, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to accommodate everybody with the live stream time. I would love to, but I have to find a time where I'll do it consistently and where, bearing in mind that I'm also running a business. So there's all that as part of it. Are Chinese characters always pronounced the same way? No, but usually the primary pronunciation is by far the most common, and then there will be secondary and tertiary pronunciations that come in different instances. Now, there are some exceptions to even that rule, which is that there are occasionally a character that comes about that has 2 very common pronunciations, and those exist, but my whole thing about multiple pronunciation characters is to not overwhelm yourself by learning too much too early. Just learn the primary definition, the primary pronunciation, and how to write it. If you learn those things, that will serve you for a much longer period of time. And then what will happen is that, think of it like this. Nobody thinks that you should learn the most advanced words before you learn the most basic words, right? We all understand that. Nobody, if you guys have heard of the HSK, there's 9 levels to the HSK. Nobody says, learn this HSK 9 word while you're studying for the HSK 1, right? The same thing applies to secondary usages of a character that maybe have a different pronunciation. That's a more advanced version of the character. So you should see it when you're more of an advanced learner. And think of it like this. If you need to learn the writing, the pronunciation, and the main meaning of a character, you've already gotten most of it down. That way, you already know how to write it. So if you find out, it changes pronunciations here, then you only have to change one thing. But suppose that you say, I'm going to learn not just the primary definition. I'm not just going to learn the components. I'm not just going to learn the primary pronunciation and tone. I'm also going to learn the secondary, tertiary, fourth definitions. I'm also going to learn all this other stuff right at the beginning. And even though the later usages aren't useful to me and won't be useful to me for many months, learn the most frequent stuff first. And then what will happen is, as you get better, you will be more prepared to understand the more complicated stuff. See here, the taxi driver in Beijing told me made in China, you? Yeah, right. Okay. Oh yeah, that's Rick. You guys are talking about the cat. That's Rick. Rick is a very vocal cat. But she loves me. Rick's also a girl because I didn't know I didn't know when I got her. I got her when she was 2 months old, and the people who had adopted her, the animal shelter, didn't know. And so they were like, "Oh, it's a girl." And so it's a boy. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I named him Rick at the time, and then a few months later, I took her to the vet and was like, "This is a mu mao." So mu is the way you say female for animals. So mu mao, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, you're already Rick though, so I can't change that." All right. Yeah, China is definitely safe. Safest country you've been to. It's safe in terms of crime on the street and violence. There's a low likelihood of something happening to you in terms of violence. A guy did hit me over the head with a bottle once, but that's a story for another time. But generally speaking, it's safe in that sense. It's a little bit tricky because they are a highly authoritarian government, and they locked me in my apartment complex during COVID, and I guess I was safe in there, but it was a good illustration of the safety freedom continuum. Okay, so let me continue here. Yeah. All right. We have a question here from why Mandarin characters are difficult to learn and memorize? Well, I mean, it's partially because the there's no pronunciation clue, and so you don't automatically know. Oh, hang on a second, guys. I'm getting an error from YouTube here saying that something is wrong with the stream. Let me see if I can determine what's going on here. Bear with me, guys. YouTube is telling me that there's a problem with the stream, and I'm like, it wants me to verify my identity and stuff, and, you know, all that stuff. I'm real. Okay, just give me a moment. I need that elevator music playing. Do, 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 do. All right, let's get this going here. Okay. It's making me verify my identity and all this stuff. All right. Well, this is kind of strange here. I don't know why it's not. Maybe, okay, let me try this. You guys know how it is. Sometimes you try to log into Google products and they're just like, let me give you 70 verification steps. Well, all right, here's what I'm going to do, guys, because I think it's fine. So, I don't know. You guys are still talking in the chat. So, can you guys hear me okay? Is everything still going fine from your end? Let me know. It's all good, man, says Punch Easy. All right. Well, I guess YouTube was just concerned about me. All right, let's continue with the next part of the presentation because, hey, there is more to say about the character Ji. So let's get into it. I got to size my video here because the live video on the keynote just doesn't look right. It's too laggy. All right. There we go. All right. So let's continue. So another way that you can use Ji is to think of it in relation to aviation, right? So Ji is machine, so you can imagine that if you were going to have a fly machine, a fei ji, that would be an airplane, right? And what's interesting about Chinese is that sometimes when you establish a very basic word, a word that, sure, didn't exist before airplanes existed, but since airplanes have existed, a whole panoply of vocabulary has sprung up around aviation, right? So sometimes you'll get a word like ji, which by itself really just means machine, but then it will get repurposed to also have a secondary definition of just meaning like aviation machines. So let's take a look at some other words that you might use to see this. For example, the ji chang, the ji chang. Now this is your aviation place. Well, what do you think the aviation place is? Well, that's your airport, the ji chang. So when you're in China and you want to tell your taxi driver that I want to go to the airport, you can say 我要到机场去. I want to go to the airport, right? So that's a great one for you to use there. And then what about this one? 机票. Well, what's a 票? Well, once again, we're dealing with a plane or aviation in some manner. And So it's a ticket. So it's a 机票. This is your plane ticket, right? So you can see here how they came up with the word 飞机, which is fly machine. And then as more and more things came to pop up, it's like, oh, we need ports for all of these planes, and we need to give people tickets to get on these things. They decide, okay, 机 is just going to be the word that we're going to use to help get this across. So and then how about this one? We all know there's a plane ticket, but then you also have your 登机牌. This is your ascend plane card. Your ascend plane card. Well, that'll be your boarding pass. So, these days they can often be on your phone, but some people still want to have the actual paper thing, on their person. So that is a 登机牌. And of course, it's interesting because you see ascend plane. It's a way that you can think of how planes used to be boarded, because a lot of times when there is an update in the language, or in the technology, we used to walk up a little staircase to get on planes, and we still do sometimes. But these days it's usually like that little, tunnel that goes to the plane. And so you're not really ascending. In fact, you're usually descending from the airport. But the point is that because that's how it was, that's still the word they use. And even though it's not really a card anymore, it's usually on your phone, it's still the word they use. And so it's kind of like that. Language is often like that, right? Now, how about this one? Now, you're going to need your 登机牌, because this is a 客机 that you're going to be riding, which is a guest plane. A guest plane, well, that's just a passenger plane, as opposed to a 货机. 货机. I didn't put that one in here. Let me just drop that in the chat so you guys know what I'm talking about here. But a 货机 is a goods plane or a cargo plane, right? So if you have a goods plane, then, like people are being like, airport. If you have a goods plane, then that would be the opposite of a passenger plane. Well, not an opposite, but it's just another version. So let me just drop that in here. 货机. Okay, drop that in the chat. All right, so that's your 客机, the passenger plane. What about this one? So we have the 登机口, the 登机口. So we had the 登机牌 before. So the 登机口, this would be the ascend plane opening. Well, this, of course, would be your boarding gate, your gate. So, these are all the things you need to know in an airport. You got to get your ticket. Then you got to use your ticket to get your boarding pass. And when you need your boarding pass, you got to go through 安检, which is the security check. And the, I'm not going through airport vocabulary here. I'm just going over 机. But there are many things that you do in the airport, because 机 has ended up being the word for like plane or aviation. Then you get all of these words that are very useful in that context. So a 登机口 is your boarding gate, and then if you're special and you don't want to wait at this boarding gate, you can wait at the 候机室, which is the wait plane room, or the airport lounge. So if you have special airport privileges, then you could use the 候机室. Chinese is easy. Just a reminder, in case you forgot. Chinese is very easy if you know the characters. Okay, so the 停机坪, the stop plane flat surface. Well, this is the tarmac, right? So this is where the planes, kind of will either stop or queue or whatever. And so, that's the that's the way that you would say tarmac, which is not the same thing as the runway. That is the 跑道. Literally, it's the direct translation of runway in English. It's just run, 跑, which is like literally the Chinese word for run, and then 位, 道, So it's the 跑道. But that's a little bit different than the 停机坪, because the 停机坪 is just the tarmac in general. So you've landed already. All right. Then what about this? So you're on the tarmac. That means you're already in the plane, which means you're in the 机舱. 机舱. That's the plane cabin. It's a direct translation. In this case, it's just the aircraft cabin, right? Nice. So how about this one? The 机长. Well, this is the plane leader. The plane leader, the 机长. Well, what might that be? Well, it's the pilot, the captain. And 长, in general, is just somebody who is like the head of something. Could be the captain, could be just, the head of an organization, could be 长. There's other words that you can use for this, depending on the different situation. And that's also one of the very rare situations where you have a character, that second character there, 长, is often, this is one of the rare instances in which a character has two very common, very frequent pronunciations that you should learn right at the beginning, because 长, meaning like leader, captain, all of that, can also be pronounced 长with a ch and a second tone to mean long, right? So that's an instance in which you should learn those things. Okay, so we have the 机长, that's the pilot or captain. Well, how about the 机组? I'm going to make myself smaller here. Too big. All right. Then we have the 机组. Okay. Well, this is your plane group. Plane group. What do we think here? Plane group. Well, what about the flight crew? Right? So that's your 机组. And so if you want to talk about everyone, then you should do the 机组. You should refer to the 机组, the flight crew, everyone in the crew. Okay, this is a very useful one to know. 转机, 转机, and that means to shift plane, like shift or, change plane. Well, that's to transfer flights. If you 转机, that's a transfer. And so when you get into the airport and you have a transfer, you want to look for, in airports, they always have English as well, of course. But if you see 转机 in the airport, but it's more useful if you're like going to talk to to somebody at the counter. You can say, 我还需要转机，你知道登机口在哪儿呢? Right? So like that would just mean, I need to transfer flights. Do you know where the gate is for my flight, for my transfer? And maybe, if you're particularly special, the 转机 is you're going to transfer to a special type of aircraft called the 直升机, the straight rise machine. The straight rise machine. When I first learned this word, it made me laugh at how simple and fun Chinese is, because the straight rise machine is a helicopter. I actually rode one of these in Dujiangyan with my buddy Scott. We were traveling northern Sichuan, and Scott we were just like laughing over the name of helicopters. Just like a 直升机. Yes, it's the straight rise machine. It goes straight up. That's what it is. And I just like how Chinese sometimes, I don't know, just sometimes it nails it. Okay. So let's go ahead, and I gotta cover up my silly live video here because it's too laggy. All right, let me get get the YouTube chat back here. I'm sure you guys have figured this out, but I like to kind of just, I gotta do this. Hang on. Bear with me, y'all. Is that gonna work? I don't know why it's, I See, I'm still figuring out live streaming sometimes. Like, why is it all cut off like that? I don't know. Let's try this. Oh, that worked. All right, so that made it better. Okay, so let me catch up to where I left off. I was saying some stuff here. Fadesy is one of Dan's favorite words. All right. Okay, it sounds like everybody could hear me then, so I didn't need to. Next time OBS tells me that my stream is broken, I will not listen to them. Okay, and can you say my name? Mamonui. I don't know. I speak Chinese and English, so I'm not good at pronouncing other languages. Nice. Glad to see that people were seeing airport. Let's see. Boarding pass. Nice. I think you should get Anki. Yeah, Anki. Okay, so here's what I'll say about Anki. Anki is very useful if you can get over the learning curve. If you're not tech savvy, Anki is very frustrating. I'm not a coder. Anki was clearly made for coders. It was made for people who are computer programmers, and we actually used to use Anki as a part of our course, and we got rid of it because too many people were coming to us saying, I don't know how to use this thing, right? Like most of our customer support was giving people help with Anki, which isn't even our software. So that was very frustrating. But my point here is just to say that, oh, and by the way, I should have mentioned this. I always have to remember that it's like, I've talked about Anki for so long that I forget that like there's some people who've never heard of it. Anki is a spaced repetition flashcard software. It's kind of like the Linux of spaced repetition flashcard softwares in the sense that it's totally customizable, but it's not, it's like the opposite of Apple Mac, where it's like everything is made user-friendly for somebody who isn't a tech person. So if you struggle with tech and you're not particularly tech savvy, then Anki might be a bit of a pain. But if you're willing to go through that pain, then it's very useful and very customizable. And spaced repetition software is essentially just smart flashcards. And the elevator pitch for SRS is this. If you use SRS, you can guarantee that you will review the facts that you learn the fewest number of times necessary to remember them forever, right? So the science of memory is memory recall has shown that when we recall something from our unconscious, that is to say, it is in our conscious mind, and then we move on to other things and it goes into our unconscious mind, and then we recall it again, then our knowledge of it becomes stronger at that point, and we can then go longer before we need to be reminded again so that we don't forget. So it's basically it ensures you don't forget the various things you learn. And when you are learning a big skill like Mandarin Chinese, where you need to learn a bunch of disparate facts, like say 3,000 Chinese characters, having spaced repetition software organizing your memory is very useful. And I mean, for me, it's indispensable. It's like, it's hard for me to imagine not having used spaced repetition software all that time. However, we use a company called Traverse, and their flashcard software is what we use alongside Mandarin Blueprint. And it's basically on the other side of the spectrum of Anki. It's like we have the cards already built into Traverse, so you don't have to make any of your own cards. So you don't have to figure out how to make cards, which is a thing that Anki can be very confusing with at the beginning. And it's customizable only to the point where it's necessary for what you need to do with Mandarin Blueprint. So it's less customizable, but more user-friendly. Ever since we switched to using Traverse for our spaced repetition flashcards, the amount of people who are having difficulties with Traverse has gone way, way down. Like it's barely a part of our customer service element these days, which is great. So it means that, we can focus more on things that actually get you better at Chinese, because the result is the same. You still get the knowledge into your head, whether you use Traverse or Anki. It's just that Anki is very confusing to use, and then we end up answering customer support questions, and then we can't build new materials because we're too busy answering customer. It's like, it's all these problems that arise. So that's what's up with Anki. Okay. Nice. Checking out the rest of some of the questions here. Nice. Glad to hear that you're appreciating the aviation terms. Let's see here. Glad to see their friends from Africa meeting each other. 机照片. That's an interesting one. A drone is actually called a 无人机, a no-person plane or aviation vehicle or machine. So the no-person machine. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say 无人机拍的照片 or 无人机摄影 would be kind of like a way you could say photography from a drone. Peniel King is funny. All right. So let's just seeing if there's any other specific questions that have come about here. I'm always happy to give insights about the Chinese language for free. Like, my feeling is that, like, we have courses that structure everything and make it, so that you can acquire the language faster. And so since it saves you so much time, we charge some money for it. But it's also, you can do it for free if you spend more time. It's basically just a time money question. Like, if you follow the advice that we give on this channel and figure it out, you can do it. You just have to spend a lot of time with all the legwork of figuring out, like, okay, I got to, put these softwares together, and I got to build a character order, and I got to do all this stuff. And for some people, they have more time than money, and so I want to make sure that those people are served as well. And then if people would rather spend a little money and save some time, we have a bunch of courses. And by the way, one of the ways that you can learn about our courses is to take the Mandarin Blueprint Challenge. You see the link to it on screen right now. It's in the show notes, the description, mandarinbp.com/challenge-ls. That lets us know you came from the live stream. It's a $7 challenge that gets you access to the first 3 phases of the course, and you can, with daily goals, so you can see how you can build off of what you've already learned. All right. How long did it take you to learn Chinese? I mean, obviously there's different levels to how well you do with it. Like, I look back at how much I had learned after 2 years, and I obviously know way more now. But after 2 years, I passed the HSK 6, which was the highest level at the time, and I could definitely communicate with the Chinese people around me. So, in some sense, I was successful because, I look at it and I go, well, if you get your point across, you did it, right? Now, everybody is self-critical. I look back at how I spoke in 2015, and I think, like, lots of mistakes, and, of course. But the fact that I was able to ultimately communicate means that I did it. And, Chinese people never hold it against you. They're so excited that you're even trying to learn. It's really quite nice of them. So, in a certain sense, 2 years, but yeah. So Peniel, you're asking about how long it would take to learn and memorize Chinese characters. I mean, you can learn an individual Chinese character in 30 seconds to a minute if you use the right technique, which is what we teach here at Mandarin Blueprint, and it's what we teach in the Mandarin Blueprint Challenge. But if you're talking about how long does it take to learn, like, all the characters necessary, well, it's around 3,000 characters. So, many months if you're doing it in a methodical fashion. But once you get it, then the words make a ton of sense, as I've shown you today. Okay. Yeah, Anki is probably, it's okay. I've used an Asimil for learning Chinese, and I feel like this language is a mountain I will never be able to climb. Sorry to hear about Sorry to hear about that, Winslum. I mean, I think that it's definitely possible. I don't really know much about Asimil, actually. I mean, I've heard of it, but I don't know much about it. You know, if you get, I really think that the key is the characters more so than with other languages. Like the writing system with other languages is less pivotal than it is with Mandarin Chinese, because Mandarin only has around 420 syllables and the characters are so diverse and eclectic. But because they're so diverse and eclectic, you get these little awesome word constructions that are so clear, as I've been demonstrating to you guys today. So I think if you focus on characters mostly and you learn character by character, you slowly get to realize that it's actually super logical and it's not as terrifying as it seems. Like getting over the Mandarin mountain, as you're referring to, is a matter of continuing to do things that you know are making you progress every day and being sure that you're not walking off the path, right? And the problem with a lot of curriculums out there, and the problem that Luke and I set out to solve by building Mandarin Blueprint, is that they make you do things in the curriculums and you don't know if it's actually moving the needle. You don't know if it's actually helping you. And that's a really annoying feeling, because you're like, well, I want to know that what I'm doing today is making me better. Everybody understands that any language takes many hours to acquire, right? It's not like you can just do it in 24 hours. It's not going to happen. So the question then is, how can you stay motivated and keep the habit over a long enough period of time? And, you know, one of the ways that you do that is to keep being sure that you know where you are and that what you're doing is actually helping. And so the blueprint is our, you know, not just Luke and me, but the entire Mandarin Blueprints communities, the entire Mandarin Blueprints community, the entire Mandarin Blueprint communities, there we go, I can speak English, attempt at making it clear the whole way through. All right. Laura says there are a fair amount of how-to Anki videos on YouTube, but you'll probably still have to be able to extrapolate how to apply to whatever version you're using. That's probably true, yeah. I'm studying Chinese for 2 years. Just take it a day at a time. Yep. Improve 1% each day. Couldn't agree more. HK34. All right. Do you have any advice for people who are learning? Yeah, Peniel's asking 2 years to be fluent. Look, I mean, the reason is because Luke and I figured out a better way to learn. Like that, man, we made Mandarin Blueprint. The whole reason we decided, let's make this our career, let's become Chinese educators, is because we figured out a better way to learn, and we put it together into a curriculum. I got my university thesis graded, and I got an outstanding thesis award based on the educational theory behind Mandarin Blueprint. First tier in Sichuan University by Chinese professors, and it was written in Chinese. And they basically said, this is a much better way to go about learning Mandarin. So the 2 years, I get the skepticism that somebody might have, but it's because we approached it in a very methodical, character by character way. And what ended up happening was we got very addicted to the process because it was really working. So when you don't know if what you're doing is working, you lose motivation. If you do know what you're doing is working, you get addicted and you want to keep learning. So, okay. I'm going to answer a couple more questions and then I need to continue with the presentation. But we have a question from Ray here saying, do you have any advice for people who are learning Chinese and say a rural town or community where they don't have access to a lot of Chinese speakers? Yeah. So first thing is to remember that most language acquisition is about input, right? And you can get input from anywhere that has an internet connection. And if you don't have an internet connection, when you have one, download a bunch of stuff, and then you can get lots of input that way. So there's a ton of input you can get. And by input, I just mean messages that go into your ears or messages that go into your eyes. You can get loads of that from anywhere in the world, right? Now, then, after you've gotten enough input where you actually have something to say, because you can't say things on day one. You don't have anything to say because you haven't understood anything. You have to understand before you can speak. So when you feel like you've gotten enough input to have something to say, first of all, there are several things you can do on your own that don't require another person to be there. For example, you can shadow text, which is reading, listening, and speaking at the same time. You can do self-talk exercises there's plenty of those around that are great. You can talk to ChatGPT these days. So you can do all of that before you interact with someone. And then you can get on all these various apps. Hello Talk, Tandem. These are language exchange apps. There are tons of Chinese people on them. In fact, I was talking to one of the guys from Hello Talk a couple years ago, and he said there are 10 Chinese people for every one English speaker. So there's no lack of people who are willing to get online and talk to you. And that's just language exchange apps. You can also get tutors through italki if you want to do like a more structured thing. Although I would recommend get your acquisition in whatever way you can from listening and reading, and then just chat with a tutor or a language exchange partner. Don't have lessons with a tutor. Like, just talk. Just have a chance to activate the language that you've been inputting. All right. What techniques you should get to improve Chinese more quickly? Learn character by character. When you learn a new character, compare it to the other characters you've learned and see if there are any words you can build out of it, right? So like the words that are that you learn should be made up of characters you've already learned. And then when you get that word, put it into the context of a sentence that's only made up of characters and words that you already know. That way you get some comprehensible input immediately after learning the word to be able to put it in context. And then continue to do that. Expand your context too. Get lots, don't just stop at sentences. Read paragraphs, read stories. Ideally, they should be graded to your level. Now, this is really tricky to find stuff that's graded to your level, and that's why we built Mandarin Blueprint, because we wanted to build something that is completely integrated from the components into the characters, into the words, into the sentences, into the paragraphs, into the stories, so that at no point along the way are you reading and listening to content that is outside your level. In fact, it's so your level that we know exactly what characters and words you've learned, right? And so it's tricky without a structured curriculum, but it's not impossible. You just have to put more legwork into finding the content that fits what works for you. So lots of input, as much input as possible, and learn character by character. Okay. All right. I'm going to continue with the last slide here, and then I'll continue looking at some of these sentences here, and we'll go from there. All right. So let me move the YouTube chat out of the way. I will answer your questions in a moment, but I just want to get back to the presentation because there's a little bit more to say about T. And I'm trying to just get the chat to... Okay, there we go. All right. So let me make this smaller. Now, we've talked about how T can mean... it can mean machine or engine. It can mean... things related to aviation, right? But it can also have some other meanings. There's some other meanings that you can find with it. And these are more advanced words, but I kind of wanted to give you a little bit more of a picture here of what you might run into when learning Ji. So this actually isn't that advanced of a word, but it is an example of a word that is using a sort of secondary, tertiary meaning of this. And so a Ji Hui. In this case, Ji is when it's referring to chance. Chance or an opportunity. So when chance coalesces, so a hui is just, it could be a meeting. Kai ge hui. That just means like hold a meeting of at work, right? And but it in a more general sense, it just means come together. So coalesce. So if chance comes together, that is an opportunity, right? So this is the general word for opportunity, and you'll use this all the time. 机会, 机会, right? Now, I like this one, 时机. So 时 means time, and 机, again, is in this case meaning chance. Time, chance, right? So this is actually more of an opportune moment. Right? It's like this is your chance, guy, go talk to her now. 这是你的时机, so So let's continue here. So that's a 时机, and then similarly we have a 机遇. So this is a chance encounter. So 遇 means to, it actually has the road component there on the bottom there. And so this actually means to like come across or encounter. And for example, I might say, 我昨天遇到了我妈妈在街上，我在街上遇到了我的妈妈, right? So that would mean like I ran into my mom on the street, the other day. So it's kind of like 遇到 would mean like to run into. So a 机遇, this is just a chance occasion or a chance encounter in some sense. This is, you would use it in the context of expressing that this was an unplanned, right? 投机. So 投 means to throw, and it can also mean to invest, right? And so it's got this verb sense of, but like it's got the hand component, so its original sense is throw, right? So 投机, so throw an opportunity, or like kind of throw to an opportunity is essentially speculation, right? So it's an investment speculation of some kind. 投机. So you're throwing into an opportunity, you're taking a shot, seeing if there's something there, you're speculating, right? Now, how about this one? I like this. 趁机. 趁. That's a great character. 趁 means to take advantage, right? So take advantage of, so I'll just put this here. So we have, I forgot to fix that one. Still says guest plane from the previous slide. There's always one I miss. To take advantage of an opportunity. This just means, to take advantage of an opportunity. So this is referring to chen is a general word you'll say for taking advantage of some situation. And it's more, it doesn't necessarily have a negative feel. Like sometimes you say like, he's taking advantage of me. Like that's not really chen. Chen just means that there is like, for example, 趁热打铁. Strike while the iron's hot. Take advantage of the heat to strike the iron, right? And so that's what it means in that sense. So 趁机 means to take advantage of an opportunity. Oh, you guys lost sound? Is Apple 123 the only one who can't hear me? Hold on a second. Oh, okay. All right. Sounds like Apple 123. You got a problem with your speakers. All right. So then 危机. So here we have a. So 危 means danger in some way. Danger. Okay. So a danger that is at a crucial point, because that's another way that you can use D is to indicate a crucial point. And honestly, a crucial point is not that much different from an opportunity. So it's not even like that weird, but it's another way that you can think of T. So the crucial point of danger, that's a crisis, right? So if you have any kind of 危机, that's a crisis. You could be the 疫情危机, the epidemic crisis. It could be the 经济危机. That would mean the economic crisis. So you can have various different crises in this way. So danger, crucial point. How about this one? The 动机 is, 动 means to move or motion or motive. And 机 is, another way to think of 机 is a mechanism. So machine, sure, but mechanism is also a way to think of it. So the move mechanism is the motive, right? Or motivation. But in the kind of sense of like the noun form of it, like in like you'll use this in the case of like motive in the court, right? Like he has a motive to murder, and that's why we're investigating, because there was motive there, And also, it doesn't have to be used in that way, but this is your motive or motivation, 动机. And then 机构. Okay, so here's another kind of the mechanism, and then go means to form, and it often means like literally like put something together. Like it's got the tree components. You can imagine building something. And so a mechanism to form. Well, this is just the general word for an organization, right? So you could say, a 公司 is one type of an organization. Then you've got a 政府, that's your government. That's another type of organization. Or, you got a nonprofit, So 机构 is like the one that covers all of it. It's like the mechanism forming. It's a great little word. Institution is another translation of this word, 机构, right? So that's kind of pretty cool, right? And then I'll finish off with this. Like I mentioned before, just like how 飞机 becomes ends up making 机. So 飞机 means airplane, and then there's a bunch of words that use 机 that relate to aviation. Here's an example where 机构 means organization, and then you get a word like 机密, where 机 is referring to an organization. So you have an organization 密, secret. Well, this is something that is, top secret or confidential, right? So there's obviously more I could say about Ji, and I chose this character in particular to try to illustrate the point that it's, you can try to learn everything about a character right off the bat, but if you first learn the basics, like machines are called Ji, and then you kind of you get that down, and then you use them. Like they're in your life, right? And then you learn, okay, yeah, also it seems to be related to aviation. That's not too big of a jump. It's like, okay, machine to fly machine, 飞机, that means airplane. Okay, and then there's a bunch of other words that relate to aviation. Okay, I can get that. And then later, you learn these more advanced words. Well, now you've seen all those words above many times. You have no doubt what character this is. You see it and you're like, yep, that's Ji, I know that. And then you learn the other characters and you see those in context, and then you're ready to understand these more complicated words. And so a thing that learners get caught up on, and it's honestly, it's just a waste of time, because they're just worried. They're just sitting worried about like, but wait, there's other more advanced usages of this character. And it's like, just let nature take its course. 顺其自然. Just let the process of language acquisition keep washing over you through comprehensible input. And then as you get better, it will be easy to understand these variations, because it will only be one new thing later. When the goal when you're learning new skills is to try to only learn things that are right in your zone of proximal development, which in my mind's eye, I visualize like a sphere of knowledge. Starts off as like a little dot, and it grows into like a little golf ball. And then the surface of the sphere covers more of the unknown the bigger it gets. And when you cover more of the unknown, there's more surface area where you can find something that's just outside, right? And so the bigger and bigger you get, and then eventually you reach a critical mass where you know enough that you can learn more Chinese from the language itself, okay? And so a big thing that people end up doing, and I get it, it's human nature, it's only natural to like think like this, but a thing that people will do is they'll go, because I know there's so much to learn, I won't learn anything today. Because it's the finishing fallacy, like where it's like, well, because I can't finish today, I won't even start today. And it's like, but the only way to ever finish is to start at all. And also there is no real finish line in some sense. I do think that that's a little bit misleading, because there is a finish line in the sense that there's a point you pass, and it's hard to know exactly the moment it happens, but there is a point you pass where you don't need to keep learning in that sense, in like a conscious sense. You just keep taking in Chinese, and you know enough Chinese that you can just learn from the language itself. But I'm still learning new words every day, because there's more to say in a language than any one human could possibly go over in their whole lifetime. So it's like, you just want to get to the point where you can have meaningful connections with people and meaningful conversations, do work in your country with Chinese people, or go to China and do work there. There's the motivation to be able to take in all sorts of new media and enjoy it. We're trying to live our lives in a satisfactory way, and we're trying to contribute to the rest of the world. So, and I think that ultimately deep down, that's what we want the most. I don't think, maybe I'm too optimistic or too positive about humans, but I just think that except for the people who are like way out to lunch, psychopath, sociopath people, most people, they want their loved ones to be, as happy as possible, and they want to contribute to that. And Chinese can be the mechanism by which you help that happen and you contribute to the world in some way. And so just try not to get caught up on the breadth of the project and the depth of the project, because just you can learn and have fun and do new things every day that will make a difference in how much you understand. So anyway, enough of my soapbox, my little speech. And let's just go ahead and we're going to finish up here in the chat. And then I got to move on because I got more stuff to make for you guys. I got more Chinese content to produce. But let me go ahead and put the chat back on screen. And before I jump back in, just a reminder, everyone, if you'd like to get to know Mandarin Blueprint a little bit, mandarinbp.com/challenge-ls. See it on the screen now. It's in the description. I'll drop it into the chat right here. This is the best way that you can understand what the Mandarin Blueprint method is all about, what we've built here, the Henze movie method. All of this stuff relates to our attempt to try to make the path as clear as possible. At the end of the day, it's still a map. Your mind is the territory, but there's less searching the map. It's like, I don't know, it's using Google Earth to navigate versus using paper maps. That's what we're going for. So my point here is just to say that if you want to get a sense of whether or not the Mandarin Blueprint method and what we built here at Mandarin Blueprint works for you, take the challenge. You'll get a sense of how we build from the bottom up. And it's either 15 days or 30 days. You get to choose. If it's 15 days, you got to have some time. You got to have like 2 to 3 hours a day to be able to do it in 15 days. But in 30 days, you can spend like about an hour a day on it, and you will get to the point where you can read real Chinese sentences without pinyin, and they are comprehensible input by the end of it. And it's a big momentous milestone when you reach it. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the chat here and pick up where I left off. I think considering my age and how technology was changing throughout my life, Anki is easier for me, and that's why I'm confused with iPhones and Android is so easy. So yeah, I mean, obviously for some people, Anki works. I think if Anki works for you, it has the potential to be the best, but it's like, it's quite difficult for many people. I noticed that I'm able to pick out words while watching children's TV shows in Mandarin, but it's nowhere near enough to understand. But that it's all a part of the process. So yes, that is true that you don't necessarily understand the full message, but if you understood individual words, that's a rep of the word. Like in some sense, you need to get a bunch of reps of pronunciation. What are the sounds of the language? How do I get used to the sounds of the language? So there are reps in that. There's reps in tones. There's reps in tone pairs. There's reps in basic sentence structures. There's reps in seeing characters that you've already learned. And if you have immersion content around, whether it's TV shows or there are lots of Chinese books lying around your house. Maybe they're graded readers. Maybe you buy a bunch of the Mandarin companion books and you have them littered around your house. We have no, affiliate sponsorship with them. I just like those guys. There's so many things you can do to increase the likelihood that you're going to get the reps. See what I mean? And so if you're watching a Chinese TV show and you pick up on some words, that is not wasted time, right? Because you're getting the reps that you need. And we don't get to decide, and we can't plan exactly when we're going to have our epiphanies, but I can say that if you're feeling despondent at any point, and if you're feeling demotivated at any point, that's likely when you're about to have a breakthrough. I've just noticed that trend, that when you're like, I just can't get past this, it's like you're very close at that point. So yeah. I'm teaching my wife, but really have big problems with characters. Yeah, I mean, look, the characters, there's not a good way to teach characters to adults in the Chinese education system. So if you're a Chinese Han guy, then you'll know that the education system in China and how they teach it there is to kids in school by rote, right? And also the kids had already been surrounded by the spoken language for like 5-6 years before they even started to do this. And so it's just not tenable for adults. We have to have a better system, and that's what we teach at Mandarin Blueprint. So, if your wife's interested, she can check it out. I started learning Chinese about a month ago via Yo-Yo Chinese and Mandarin Blueprint videos. I also got a tutor, but I'm really enjoying it. Great. Enjoy. That's great. As long as you're having fun. That's it's very possible to have fun and acquire language. It's more like that than an academic discipline. And there's also the moments when it's a little bit difficult. Getting addicted is a great way to describe it. When you see success in learning, I need to actively pace myself so I don't just spend every waking minute learning more things. I'm doing a level a day now. Yeah, I mean, I know that feeling. And look, I keep going back and forth about this whole, like, how hard do we work? And, how much attention do we give these things? And compare that to, the other things in your life, your family, your friends, your, all the various things that matter a lot. And really, it's a matter of priority. But at the end of the day, below all of it, below every skill we're trying to learn, or below every, hard work that we're trying to do, or relaxing that we're trying to do, there is this base level consciousness that if you learn to meditate, you can tap into. And I'm a particular fan of non-dual meditation. I'm a big believer, actually, that at the end of the day, this is a very Taoist concept, but at the end of the day, the distinction that we make between ourselves and the rest of the universe is kind of like really focusing on the difference between waves in the oceans. It's all... We're just as continuous with the rest of the universe as waves are with the ocean. So if you can just get back in touch with that, which I think meditation teaches you how to do, then I find that it's hard to get too out of balance. You can spend all day building up a skill and not feel like you're overwhelmed or burnt out. Now, like, look, we have needs. We got to have enough water. We got to have enough food and all that. And we have sometimes unresolved psychological issues that keep coming up, but it's the clinging to them that's the problem, right? It's the clinging to them as if they are the same thing as us and that they define who we are, but we're just an emergent property of the universe, just like everything else is. And so we're just as continuous with it as everything else is. So we don't have to be defined by any one thought. And so anyway, I don't know why I ended up going in this Taoist rant, but it just got me thinking, because it's like there's this judgment we have about how we behave day to day. And I think that if you want to work 90 hours a week and find yourself feeling wonderful and happy, and if you want to work 20 hours a week and have lots of time with your family and find yourself wonderful and happy, if at the end of the day, the lower part of you, the conscious part of you, the part that's just worrying at the bottom is, not in pain, then, you do you, So, all right. My biggest problem will be translating in my head. It's a habit I'm still trying to break in Danish, which I've been learning for a few years. Yeah, I mean, I think that the translating in your head issue derives, first of all, you have to at the beginning, right? So you have to connect the sounds and the language to something. So it's like there's a little bit of that. But then there's also the not being willing to take the training wheels off because it's hard and it's scary and all that stuff. And just listen to the Chinese, watch the Chinese, and not worry about translating it, right? What I know, once I got that and I just got comprehensible input is all that matters. Then what ended up happening was I stopped worrying about translation, and I just took in the comprehensible input, and then when I would go to speak, I'd have something to say, like magic. It always felt like, how do I know what to say here? But yeah, I have seen these words before. Like the words I'm saying, I have seen, I have read at various moments. I'd never said them before this conversation, but I just said it. And it was like my brain rose to the occasion because I was feeding it the right nutrition of comprehensible input, right? And so what that means is that I'm actually not a very good translator because I stopped trying to do it all the time. So sometimes when I'm trying to explain what a Chinese sentence means in English, I'm like, oh yeah, how do I explain that? And it can be kind of annoying sometimes, but yeah. Yeah, Tony, your point about traveling to China, I mean, it's easy if you have the resources to travel to China. It's like, in case you can not afford, you might not be able to afford to go there. I pronounce J as T. Is it wrong or good? I mean, I assume you're saying it's not exactly the same. There's a T in Chinese. It's very aspirated. Your tongue goes against the back of your front teeth with the T. So ta, ta, ta. And it's, when I say aspirated, I mean there's extra air coming out. Ta, t, t, right? And then in the case of J, you put your tongue against the back of your bottom teeth. G, G. And it only ever comes before the E or the U sound. So, ji, ju, ji, ju, right? And if you keep your tongue there and then just say a J like you would in English, but you say the J like you would in English, but with the tongue against the back of your bottom teeth. When we say J, like Jeep, we put our tongue up kind of more where you say the T. But in Chinese, you put your tongue down. Ji, ji. You can also do this like a little sort of smile. Ji, T, T. I mean, that's exaggerated, but it's a way to practice. T, 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 right? That's that can usually help with that. Okay. I find that I have to get out of my own way. How long, how much? Just try the movie method. Be consistent. Let your brain do the magic. Couldn't agree more, Paul. Good evening from folks in the UK. To build something more complex, you need extra blocks. Quickest way is the movie method. Thank you. I agree. 谢谢老师. Awesome. I still learn language in English. That's what most people don't realize is that you probably aren't perfect at your native language, so there's no need to be perfect in your target language. Couldn't agree more. That's, of course, you're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes in English all the time. Thank you for your useful words. I also just wanted to add that your content is absolutely fantastic, and I especially love the idiomatic expressions. Thanks. Good to hear that, Ray. I like getting feedback about what you guys like because a lot of times we're just trying stuff, Let's see here. Can you suggest us channels for comprehensible input? There are so many these days that I would just suggest that you search YouTube. Just search, Chinese comprehensible input channel, and you'll probably find a bunch. Thanks a lot again for the lesson. I hope you'll manage to create a consistent community out of this. It's engaging and fun to be here. Glad to hear that. I like your attitude towards learning Mandarin. If you have fun, it won't be that difficult, right? Yeah, it's not hard to do fun things. It's a big challenge for me to learn Chinese, but I never give up. Good, awesome. Chinese shows me I can speak every language much easier. Yeah, totally. All right, thanks everyone. This was great fun. And just one final reminder that... Let me just move the chat here. One final reminder that if you would like, you can join the Mandarin Blueprint Challenge over there at mandarinbp.com/ls and get involved. This is how you get to basic literacy in just about 30 days and even 15 days if you're particularly committed. So thank you all very much. Mwah.